Hello and welcome to episode 24 of the Swimrun Show podcast. I'm Mike, and it's been a while since the last episode, a couple of weeks, been a busy time here. And yes, unfortunately so busy I wasn't able to race at any of the races this weekend at all. It's just full on. But well done to anyone who was racing down in Cornwall, Roseland. John Yelland leading that race from the organisational point of view, former guest of the show. There was also the Wales swim run in Pembrokeshire. Of course, there's lots of swim run races in Wales. Don't get confused with the namings. Well done to anyone there. I've got Rockman, former guest of the show, for Hasselberg. Yeah, that happened. And there was a big race in Finland as well, in the My Swimrun Championships, the Ultra, kind of 50-something kilometre race, made a debut in Finland. So loads going on. I mean, and there was also Whistler a couple of weekends ago in Canada. And Gower and Grafenwater took place a couple of weekends. I will review. I was at Gower. I managed to get away for that one. It was quite handy with the later start time, so I could actually get down and back in the day. So yeah, a bit of a review of that later after this week's guests, who are Nicky and Chelsey Bailey, mother and daughter team behind the As Keen as Mustard events. And yeah, we'll crack on with those guys very soon. Listen, for the end of the show, I've got a competition where someone will win the ARK Mega, the biggest pull buoy in the world, as far as I know, and loads of a bit of kit updates, review of Gower, and all sorts of more chit chat. So there we go. But let's crack on with As Keen as Mustard events, Nicky and Chelsey. Here we go. Okay, so hello, Nicky and Chelsey Bailey. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Good,
And you?
Yep.
Good. Yeah, it's kind of mid-season, come up pretty quick, and some holidays approaching. You've had a busy time as well, I see.
Yeah, we've done our first 2 events of the season. We've got another 2 to come, so a bit of a respite in the summer.
Yeah. So you started with, was it Neen Valley?
It was, yeah. So we do that's our long distance one. That's the only attempt at a long distance we do. So we do the 5, the 10, the 21 and the 39 at Neen Park, or at Neen Valley as it is now. We were in Neen Park, but we had to decamp because of the otters.
Oh, otters. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you see them much?
You do. There's seals and otters in the Neen, especially that far. Because we're quite close to the wash. You end up swimming with them quite a lot, with the seals and the otters. But they did a wildlife survey and decided that we weren't allowed near Neen Park, so we decamped and moved to Sibson Lake, which was actually a very nice corner of the world, to hold a little bit of a camping festival, swim run-esque weekend.
Yeah, we took over the whole site.
We did, yeah.
Cool.
We spread ourselves out a bit.
Cool. So Neen Valley's now lake based, and the Neen Park is more of a.
No, we're river based with the Neen. There is a small lake there, but it would only do for a couple of crossings. It wouldn't do for a main swim. And in Neen Park, there was only one lake available to swim in, so we were a little bit of lake and a lot more of river, and now we're just all river. So,
okay.
But it's a lovely stretch of water. I mean, there's a lot of bad press about rivers and the pollution and things, but that section is actually, it tests incredibly well. We're quite a while away from any big kind of sewage works and problems. They come after us. From the Peterborough down to the Wash is not as clean as the part we use. So yeah, it's a lovely part of the country.
I'll come back to that. Actually, it's a good point there. But the Wash, for people who don't know the Wash, I don't know the Wash. What's the Wash?
The Wash is a section of fenland that the fen was drained to create farmland, and the Wash is where the main part of the River Neen flows out to the sea. Right. And they call it the Wash because it quite often gets washed over by the sea and the river, depending on the tide flows and things like that.
Cool. I've heard of it. I've just never been down that way. But I was talking briefly to Simon Griffiths at Gower, like whenever it was, 2 weeks ago, about rivers and stuff, and the impression that some swimmers are getting from the media and various sources. But in my personal experience, the rivers I swim in anyway, and the estuaries are as good as they've ever been. And Simon was saying it's I don't know if it's the certain things in the media are putting a lot of people off, but I don't know. I've not been down south recently, but as you say, the ones that you're operating in sound great, and so I feel like it's a bit. There's a problem, and there's always been a problem with sewage going into the sea, which is but I'm not seeing. Maybe I'm just swimming in the right places, but yeah.
I think that's the key is picking your spot in the river and looking at the river itself. And I mean, the Surfers Against Sewage have got a fantastic map that tells you where they're discharging and how often they're discharging, and they're doing an amazing job of trying to bring it back to the water companies to make them take responsibility for it and stop it, which is brilliant. But there's that fine line between making them take responsibility and putting people off actually swimming in them. But it's using your common sense, isn't it? You walk up to a river, and if it smells, you're not getting in it. And the beauty. I mean, we're very lucky with the River Nene. Is it's mostly reed bed, and the first thing they ask you to do if you have any kind of septic tank or sewage or anything like that is it discharges into a reed bed. So the river itself is a natural filter. But yeah, I mean, we test it religiously and keep on top of it and keep an eye on it and make sure that we're doing the very best we can. But I have to admit, we're very lucky with our section of river that we use, that it is so picturesque and also so clean and tidy.
Yeah, I mean, it's our training ground, so, it's in our best interest for it to be clean, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the media, though, isn't it? That topic. Simon was talking about it. He's just in terms of his just swimming rather than swim run. So yeah.
Yeah, so, it is a hot topic, and I think the water companies are being asked to take charge, aren't they, of themselves?
Just take responsibility for what they've been doing, and the fact that they charge us so much on our water bills and make so much profit, and yet still discharge into rivers, where actually they need to put some of the profit back into building infrastructure so that they don't have to, and protect the rivers a little bit for not only for swimmers but for the wildlife that live in it as well.
Yeah, definitely. So so that happened, and then Grafham Water was not long ago. A couple of weekends, was it?
A couple of weekends ago, yep.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's always lovely swimming in there. That's a huge reservoir, so
right.
In our element in there.
Cool. And how are the numbers compared to last year on those two?
We ended up about the same. It was all very last minute entries. I think 40% of our entries came in the last 3 weeks. So, but that's across the board. I think in many things, it's people are just waiting. I think perhaps a product of COVID, where everybody was being deferred and things were being cancelled, so people weren't booking in advance for fear of losing their money or whatever. So I think that's one of the byproducts from COVID. But it just makes planning a little bit more difficult because you just don't know how many people are going to turn up. And we also get an awful lot of very last minute, in the few days before the event. Oh, I've forgotten to enter. Do you think I can have an entry? And so, but yeah, I mean, we're in-house with the timing team, so it's never too much of an issue. But
it helps with planning. If people could plan like 2 months in advance when we're ordering
great,
stuff, it would be fantastic. But
we'd know how many bananas to get then, wouldn't we?
Yeah, not a mad dash out to Tesco's like, we don't have enough. Get some more Jaffa cakes in quick. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's those things that, like the whatever goodies or the stuff that you've got to order kind of 4 or 5 weeks in advance. That's the annoying thing, isn't it? Where you've
Yeah, you need to do a bit of planning, don't you?
Yeah.
Even it's down to a number of swim caps and things like that. But I mean, we have a stab at the beginning of the season and just estimate how many we think. Most things will carry over. Obviously, the bananas won't, but most things will carry over to next season. So we try and be as efficient as we can with reusing and not damaging the planet and all that. So
cool. And how are the times looking? Did you compare the kind of finish times? Are people getting faster, do you think, overall on those two events, or was it about the same?
Well, I think Neen's quite challenging because it was a completely different course. Like when we got told we couldn't go to Neen Park, we spent all of the winter marching around the countryside looking for places, talking to farmers, gaining access, persuading people to let us send some mad people dressed in wetsuits and swim caps around their fields and things like that. So it's quite difficult with that one because it was such a different course compared to last time.
And I think the river as well, the river changes with every day. So if the flow is a little bit tougher, then times are a little bit slower.
Grapham was about the same as last year. Nobody seems to have got any faster around Grapham.
Although there were waves in Grapham last year.
Yeah, last year it was like the sea. So I think they were a little bit quicker this year because they weren't battling waves, swell and waves on a reservoir.
Right.
They say make it more adventurous, and so we booked the weather, and they didn't like it very much.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because there's definitely swim runners who do like the rough stuff, don't they? So yeah, it's always they always get a kind of broad kind of preference, I suppose.
Yeah, there's quite a hardcore group that the steeper the hills, the rougher the sea, the harder it is, the better it is. We're a bit soft, aren't we?
Yeah. I think Grapham, we are very lucky with Grapham because the 5s and the 10s go just up the North Shore, as they call it. They split it in half and have the North and the South Shore. So the 5 and 10s go up the North Shore, which is all bays and it's quite sheltered. So it's quite nice for those starting out and doing a 5 and 10K to have the sheltered. And it kind of lulls the 21Ks into a false sense of security. So then when they get over the other side, it tends to be much more choppy. Even on a still day, there'll be a bit of chop on the South Shore. So, yeah, you get the best of both worlds there, really, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
But we're not very hilly, so I think that's the we just... undulating,
we're on the
I
edge
think we
of
call
fen,
it.
So.
Well,
when we get to Buell, nice. We have a few more hills.
Yeah. Well, that's yeah. I mean, that's good as well, isn't it? Because it's there's so many different swim run events now in the UK, aren't there? And having a bit of everything, I suppose, is good for.
I think there were a few people with our 39 that at the beginning of the season, because it is reasonably flat. I mean, we get excited if it goes up by 20 metres, don't we?
Yeah.
And although it was called Neen Valley, it's not particularly deep valley or many steep hills, but it's a good course to actually try that kind of distance without the killer hills and the stuff that comes with it. And we always say that although we haven't got any hills, we've got uphill swimming when we do the Neen, because we try and keep the 39s going upstream, don't we? Just as a bit of a challenge.
Nice.
So you've got the distance without the tough terrain.
Yeah. And so, how did you guys get into organising Swimrun?
I think I did my first swim run in 16, 17, and just thought it was a great adventure. And the more people I could tell about it, the better. So the only way to do that would be to put one on. So I wrote Chelsey, and we were both triathlon based, weren't we? And it just, when neither of us seemed to be very built for the bike and never really got very fast in the bike. We don't run very fast. We get there, but it's a very steady pace. And triathlon is very competitive. And so swim run is just a breath of fresh air. It's just a nice adventure. So I wrote Chelsey into helping me organise a 10K, and the rest is history. as they say.
And I think when we started organising them, there wasn't really an option for anything shorter than a marathon distance and in a team. And I know right at the start we got absolutely hammered. We were advertising on Facebook, and a few people were like, "Well, what's a 10K solo swim run? They don't exist." And it's like, well, as long as you're swimming and running, it's a swim run, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Americans got a little bit aggressive.
They got a bit aggressive, and like you can't call it swim run if it's not in a team and it's not marathon distance and it's not tough. And it's like, well, you don't start marathon running at a marathon distance. You start with a 5K park run. And you build up from there. And every great Olympian started somewhere. They started with a 5K park run. They started swimming a length in the pool. They started with like a lap round the block on the bike if you're a triathlete. So, you have to start somewhere. And sometimes 39, 45, 90K looks terrifying, and it's not a place to start. So
it's not accessible, is it, for the general weekend warrior?
Yeah, we are the weekend warriors. We are weekend warriors. We're not athletes. We just really enjoy being out in nature and swim running and trying to create something that you didn't have to train for 6 months to do, that you could, if you could run 8K and you could swim 2 and you could have a jolly, you could probably get round. And that was kind of where we started, slated or not.
Yeah, I think we just put on events that we would want to do. I mean, we've been and we've done Gothenburg, and we've done some of the bigger ones, and it's okay, but I can't see the fun in battling with big waves. And Chelsea's been like 10 foot above me on the end of a tether on the top of a wave and all that kind of stuff. And it's great. I mean, there was a lot of nervous laughing. Wasn't it? But I think to have a nice weekend jolly, a bit of an adventure that's testing, but not, it's not going to scare the living daylights out of you. I think it's more attractive to a lot more people than killing yourself, with the tougher events. So yeah, I think we put adventures on for adventurers.
Yeah. So appealing to different type. I suppose all the races appeal to different people. Interesting. The Americans slated you. What? That was interesting.
Well, there was one in particular that
will remain nameless.
They sent me quite a few aggressive messages saying that a 10K solo swim run was not a swim run, and that there was no way that you did swim run as a solo.
And then we've sat there very quietly and very smugly watched as
everyone puts on a solo
now. And Ortillo came and did the solo, and then they put on sprint races, and we just quietly sat there and went, "Oh, interesting."
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I totally understand the need for a partner. If we go back to the big waves and Chelsea 10 foot above me on a tether, then yes, you definitely need a partner, because the chances of getting into trouble are a lot higher than they are on a reservoir in Cambridgeshire. Mm-hmm. And we have like safety cover and all the rest of it. Sometimes when we've been abroad, the safety cover hasn't been able to get anywhere near you because the waves are so big. And I totally understand that you need a partner. If you're going to get
someone to save your ass.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But when it comes to more calmer situations, then and plenty of water safety, then why not do it by yourself?
Yeah. I've been doing a solo experiment this year, actually, myself, as a participant. So yeah, it's been fun. I think basically the kind of conclusion will be that it's great solo or team. There'll be some races I prefer as a team, definitely, and some prefer or equally, prefer or happy to do it solo or team.
If you're on a longer distance and you get spread out, you don't see so many people. If you've got a partner, that's great. When we've done a couple of the longer distances, to actually fall out with somebody or agree with somebody along the way or whatever, you need somebody. But on a shorter, more civilized one, I think, you see a few more people, and it's not quite so, you're not quite so lonely.
Yeah, definitely. And coming back to the kind of accessibility, I suppose when it started, it would be 30 plus people in terms of age, 40 plus. People had done quite a bit, and had done longer and longer things, and then they like the long stuff, the endurance. As you get to that kind of age, that seems to happen. But as you say, the 15-year-olds, the 17-year-olds, the youngsters and the 20-year-olds, they want to start with something shorter, which is what's on offer now. I mean, there's every distance available now, isn't there? I think Paul and Jude at the old Southeast Swimrun have a 2K. So yeah, it's definitely, it's kind of the old guys kind of accepting that actually we do need some young blood in the sport to help it grow. So I think that's a good thing.
We've all got to be open-minded. I think it's got to appeal to the masses, haven't it? If it's going to reach a mass market, then it's got to appeal to the mass market. And I think the more options that you can offer, the better. It's that was our thinking with the Survivor as well. We tried to make a lap or two that was slow enough for the breaststroke power walkers, and also the other end of the scale, as things started to hot up, the very competitive were battling it out at the end. So that ended up with being a format that was for everyone. So I think we'll see a lot more diverse swim run as such. I mean, there are no hard and fast rules about how many swims, how many runs, but obviously I would say you need to swim at least twice, to call it a swim run. But it's got to appeal to everybody, hasn't it? To make the market grow.
Yeah. I think it is kind of accepted minimum 2 swims, and 2 runs, I guess, or 3 runs. But yeah, I mean, and then there's the other argument that some people might have, not necessarily organisers, how it's growing very slowly, really. But some participants might say, well, we like it because it's not mass. It's not a mass market. It is relatively small. That kind of argument against growth. But unfortunately, to make it sustainable for event organisers, there does need to be some growth, doesn't there? So,
it's an economy of numbers, isn't it? And every race organiser, it's an economy of numbers. But I think the beauty of swim run, especially if you're out on course, I mean, even if you had 200 people on a 10K. You all swim and run at different paces. You're all going to get really spread out, and you're still going to enjoy whatever environment you've been put in. And it doesn't matter how many people are going to do it. You're still going to be out in nature and doing it and enjoying it. And you don't, we've kind of come away from necessarily calling them races and calling them events and trying to get people to understand that you can race. You can be competitive if you want to be, but you can also just go for a really nice jolly in the countryside. Swim where you wouldn't normally get to swim because you've got to run to it. Run where you wouldn't normally get to run because you've got to swim to it. And properly get out and enjoy the environment you're in. And the more people that do that, the more people we get on side with protecting your environment and actually getting out in nature and enjoying it and making better for your health and all those different benefits. So I get the argument of exclusivity. It's nice to think it's your game when you walk into the office with your mug and say, oh yes, I did this wacky sport in the countryside. But at the same time, it's nice to then gather a few people and next time go with 4 or 5 of you and have a giggle around a 10K instead of just doing it by yourself.
Yeah. And I think the training as well is people might struggle. Some people who might struggle with the swim run training on their own, and I think, as someone was saying recently, just having the clubs and the little groups that do regular training, swim run training together at certain spots, and I know Cambridge do a lot of that. And South Sea.
Yeah, it's quite daunting, isn't it? To actually get out there. And I mean, we always train together when we train because of the swimming element. It's swimming by yourself and stuff like that is is risky. So it is one of those sports where you need to train with people, or within a group.
You don't look so weird either. If
No,
you're with a group of people
exactly.
going around in their wetsuits and swim caps, you don't get so many looks, or people are less likely to just give you a proper old look if there's a group of you. If you're on your own, you just get this look of, what are you doing? Why are you running in that? And you almost have to. I mean, we had it explained to us. We were coming out of the river once, very unelegantly, our lad. It was all going a bit Pete Tong, and somebody came up and went, "Oh, that looks very James Bond." And I'm like, this is the least James Bond-esque I've ever felt in my life.
I think I was shoving you up by the bum.
Yeah, and I had the bloody tow rope wrapped around my foot. My poor boy was trying to knock me out, and my paddles were still on, and it was just horrific. And well, this is very James Bond. And I'm like, that's the nicest thing somebody's ever said to me when we were swimrun training.
Yeah, that is a compliment.
But it's, as a group, you don't look quite so weird, do you?
Yeah.
No.
A group of weirdos is better than a singular
one. Yeah. Solo weirdos or a group of weirdos.
Yeah, definitely. And okay, so that's it. Bringing the solo in. That's how it all started. So it was a 10K.
Yeah.
And was there a team option as well, or?
No, we first started with the 10K solo.
Okay.
And we have considered doing a team with the solos, but with the 10Ks. But I always think with tethers and things, if you've got solos and you've got tethers in shorter races with inexperienced people, then I think you're creating a few problems. We try and make it as straightforward as we can for the babies, we call them, don't they? The 5s and 10s. So that they enjoy their experience. I mean, we've got tangled a few times with tethers, haven't we, and things, and we're confident enough not to panic, when you've got someone swum over your tether and, you've been dragged forwards, backwards. And so to kind of make it a little bit more of a safer environment, or a more friendly environment, we've kept the 5s and 10s solo. I think by the time you get to a 21, you've got a little more experience, although we have newbies going straight in at 21, but mostly you've got a few under your belt by the time you get to a 21. So it's more to make it user-friendly and as straightforward as possible, so people want to do it again. Yeah,
definitely. And and your next one coming up is Buellwater in September. Is that right? Tunbridge Wells?
It is, yeah.
Is that's a lake
beautiful
or reservoir?
part of the country. Yeah, reservoir. Massive reservoir, isn't it? Yeah. Although with every reservoir, there's always a nature reserve, so you end up with only being able to use a small proportion of it, don't you? So
right, and that's a big day in the UK swimrun world. Same day as Dovey X swimrun in Abu Dhabi. Here,
absolutely.
But it's far enough apart. But there's definitely more races in the UK this year, isn't there? And inevitably a few clashes, I guess.
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, we set up a WhatsApp group about 3-4 years ago just to try to, because there was a few of us, trying not to get a few of us on the same day.
Yeah.
But then there's other things. I mean, some people can't use particular water at a certain time. They've got a date that they need to. I think Chloe's very restricted with hers, with a certain date that she can have. Yeah. So, and we have to avoid the fishermen.
Yeah, the river fishing season. So we always have to go for early June if we're going to use the river, because otherwise the fishermen are just a nightmare. We lose most of our course if we go anywhere near the river fishing season. So, and Buell has their triathlon, their marathon, I think, like either side of ours, and trying to avoid the summer holidays, and it's a minefield. I think
it only leaves a few weekends, doesn't it? Really,
and I think we've done as the UK as a whole. I think we're a long way ahead of a lot of other places, a lot of other parts of the world in our cooperation between organisers, because we actually talk and we organise and we try our best to space things out and try our best to do right by each other, which is a lot bigger and more responsible than a lot of places that just like you only have to look at triathlons and you'll have like 4 triathlons in one area and they're all moaning about each other. And it's like, well, actually, if you talked and worked out what your dates, you could actually have 4 weekends in a row. You all get the same people, but they'll do 4 on the trot. And yeah, like you and Chloe with the Welsh weekend, as we now call it, and go to Wales and swim run both days. I think that's a bloody epic idea. But that takes talking and cooperation, and I think we're a long way ahead of a lot of other places and a lot of other sports in that. And I think that's really positive for UK swim run and growing it is the fact that we talk and we work together and we try our best to space it out as much as we can, even with the limitations that we all have.
I mean, every event has their own all sorts of factors, don't they? But I couldn't do the Welsh weekend this year, but last year it did happen. But it's.
I think you need to make that a thing, though. I think that needs to be the thing. The Welsh weekend, and then we need to do a Southern weekend, and then an East Anglia weekend. And send them round on a bus. All these swim runners.
There's something. We'll come back to that maybe in the winter. So cool, and so that's that. And then the Survivor end of season down
end of season party.
That's back to Grafham Water.
Survivor course. We had a nice venue at Neen Park. We had sort of a bridge setting, so all the spectators could stand on the bridge and watch everyone coming in and catch the final few seconds as people got cut off. But again, the otters. So we're back to Grafham. But
we think we've got it. We think we've got a nice spectator venue, or we've made the course so that the last bit is still
plenty of shoreline, so people can cheer on
and shout. Because by the last 2 rounds, my God, the noise from the bridge was just unreal. People got so into it. The DJ got
we got excited.
We got excited, but our DJ's not a swim runner at all. He usually does clubs and pubs and things like that. And when we explained it to him, he was a little bit like, oh yeah. And then by the kind of final 3 rounds, he'd got so into it, he'd forgotten he was on a microphone. And it was really good actually. By the end, there was such an atmosphere, which at times in swim run we struggle a bit for it with low numbers. You don't get the finish line atmosphere, but with the Survivor, it just got a little bit. It was epic. Very loud. Poor otters. No wonder they moved us. But hopefully we can replicate that at Grafham, because it was a proper good spectator sport as well. The chief coat holders were getting very involved.
Yeah, definitely. It was good.
No, it was like that with the Eliminator in May in Liverpool. Similar format, not as many laps, but the atmosphere it just happens, doesn't it? It's just everyone gets excited, and the people just drinking outside a hotel, and they just came to the sort of people running past. Oh, what is this? They came to the finish, were just cheering, just crazy, just out for a weekend in Liverpool. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've got one on the Saturday. You guys on the Sunday.
Showcasing swim run as well.
It is.
Sorry.
It really is, isn't it? Because I did something. I'll say similar, but it was as many laps as you could do in 6 hours at Tallyclin, and it was just so spread out. It didn't nowhere near had the atmosphere of a small course, because it was quite a big course. That. But I was really impressed actually with how it did showcase swimrun, and it just explained it. It didn't need to explain, because people could see exactly what was happening in out. It was just simple.
I think part of, when you start talking about swimrun, they're like, oh, aquathon, and it's like, no, you don't get changed, and they're like, what? What about chafing? That's the question we get asked the most. What do you do with trainers, and what about chafing? And you're just like, oh mate, just and then with the Survivor, you could just sit on this bridge and just watch. And as they came hurtling around the corner, threw himself in the river, swam down the river under the bridge, and everyone started cheering. They got up and then they ran around, and they were like, Oh, I see.
You swim and you run, and you swim and you run.
Just keep doing it. And you're like, yeah. And we got loads of people from Neen Park, like general public, that were drawn by the cheering, I think, mainly. So what the excitement was. And, you know, they really did get involved and invested, and a brilliant way of just showing, like, okay, you're not just a mad bunch of weird people running around in your swim caps. Actually, it's a proper good sport, proper good fun.
Yeah, definitely. So, loads to come. And have you got any races yourselves this year? And squeezing them in?
We haven't got anything in the diary. We've got quite busy other lives as well. You know, we both. I run my own business, and Chelsey's got a full-time job and helps with her partner's business. So lots going on. We hopefully should squeeze. We usually get a weekend away somewhere, Spanish,
kind of October-y time.
just to.
We used to do
wet.
We used to do the Costa Brava in April. That was an awesome race. It was really good. I think the last year we did it with Claire and Piers came out actually and did it that year. And the second half of the course, there was a very nice Spanish man that, as the waves were getting higher and higher and it's getting choppier and windier, he just stopped us and went, "No swim, now on no swim, run home." And we're like, oh, okay. And that's the last we've heard from them. No race this year. So I don't know whether it had gone a bit Pete Tong that year and then they'd called it off. But that was a really good one we used to go and do. But yeah, we'll find something in October to go and have a...
I think Cyprus is looking promising. But then I just looked actually, and they're all solo now. So it's a whole solo...
just solo, is it?
Solo course. Yeah, I'm quite surprised because I've looked at Cyprus before, and some weekends Chelsey can't do, and I can't rope my husband in. He came to the first one very reluctantly, and I made him, and I promised I wouldn't shout at him because he doesn't run very well. He swims very well, but he doesn't run very well. And I promised I wouldn't shout at him if he walked. And I didn't, but I got very close. So other than Chelsey, I haven't got anybody else to partner with. So it's now solo, which is if Chelsey can't make, then it might be Cyprus.
Yeah, cool. And I'm sure there's loads of people partner with you, Nicky.
Yeah, I just don't do anything very fast, and
she's antisocial.
I am actually.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. We get on because we're very similar people, and this is one of the things with swimrun teams, isn't it? You've got to find. You don't have to be the same pace, and I think that's a really important thing. Because loads of people, you see them on the Facebook pages, like, "Oh, I swim this pace and I run this pace." Well, it's fantastic, but if you actually have a stronger swimmer amongst the team and a weaker runner, it still works. But you've got to have the same end goal. If one person's out to win and one person's out for a jolly, then you're going to fall out halfway round because the jolly person's going to be looking at the scenery like I do. Oh, that's pretty, and over there and things like that. And the person who wants to win is going to be like, come on. So, yeah, you kind of have to have the same goal for your race.
Yeah,
and Ted were similar.
I mean, we work well together because Chelsey's the mouthpiece, I think.
She's the gobby one.
And I'm the organizer. So my role on race day is very background and Chelsey is very front. But mine is all in the planning. So I plan the courses and, we walk them together and we plan, and we mull things over. But generally, mine is all the planning and the logistics, and Chelsey's very on the day safety officer and the workings of it. And that works really well. I'm not a very good mouthpiece, whereas Chelsey can talk publicly, and I'm a bit more reserved. So I quite like the whole planning side and laying the course and all that kind of stuff. And Chelsea's more on the day. So, as a team, we work incredibly well. And it seems to be the same when we swim run.
Yeah.
It's I'm the one who's planned the race and Chelsey runs it. And I lead in the swims, but that's about it. I get dragged along everywhere else. But it kind of works. We've got a good teamwork going on. So
and it's that, same goal. Get around and enjoy the countryside or
put on a good event.
So I've watching some of the Facebook posts where people are looking for team members, and I'm a little bit like, yeah, that's nice. It's good to know how fast you swim and run, because you don't want anyone drastically slower than you. But what's your aim? Where are you planning on being? Do you want to be on the podium, or do you want a nice jolly?
Yeah. I think, it's definitely useful to know speeds and obviously goals as well. I guess it's in the UK, the kind of podium idea is relatively achievable for quite a few people, I think. Whereas in some of the other races in Europe, it's more competitive, and it would be good. I think we're actually doing really well on the kind of accessibility swim run in the UK. And
definitely. I think we've seen. We've got all sorts, from breaststroke power walking to Piers and Claire, and some
Wayne Stott, who just comes and
James
Gibson. We've got some specialists at shorter distances as well. I'm quite surprised at the number of people who have decided, however which way they've done it, is I'm going to be a 10k swim run specialist, or around that distance. I'm going to be a middle distance specialist.
But 10k, I think you can pick up and put down. So even on our off season, we can go and do a 10k without running and a couple of k of swimming, without once you're at that kind of fitness level. A 10k is not difficult. Even if you have a couple of months off, you can get straight back into it within a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're back up to a 10k. So it's that kind of accessible distance, I think, as well, that is quite appealing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got some sprint specialists, some middle distance specialists, and some team and long distance. I mean, Claire and Piers and Mr. and Mrs. B and people like that who, know the job inside out, and then some 5Kers that do sprint triathlon and come and absolutely annihilate it, try really hard to beat course records and things like that. We call it the baby races, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, right, okay, I don't want to go out and do long distance, I want to do 5-10k, and I want to be a specialist in it, and I want to get on a podium because I'm fast.
I think as well, you get to I'm getting to that age where you don't want that whole long distance thing. I don't recover as quickly as I used to, so you have a sweet spot between sort of 40 and maybe 55-ish, where your endurance is good and everything is fine. But I think especially women, you get past that kind of 55 mark and everything's hard work. It takes longer to recover, and you don't need to do quite as much training because you get injured far quicker. And I think the 5 and 10k from that perspective is much more doable. It's a much nicer distance, and for all sorts, all ages.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think this, we can do anything as organisers to get more competitive at the front? I know obviously there are some fast people, but
I think the rankings have proved to have stirred up the more competitive. They're definitely, they want to know where their points are and things like that. If it doesn't look right on the rankings, and if anyone's missed anything, then they're straight on it. So I think the rankings will tick boxes for even for everybody to see how they're doing against. I mean, everyone likes to know in their age group. I mean, that's another thing with Swimrun, with age groups and things. Another topic. But I think we all want to see how we're doing against our peers and that kind of stuff. So the rankings ticked a lot of boxes, I think, with the more competitive, and also that may make people enter one or two more swim runs than they would have, especially if they're close to the top and there's a few races in it. Back in my competitive days, that would have made me enter anything that there was going. So
I think that will help, and I think. And it's like I said before, economy of numbers. The more people you have in a sport, the more chance of elites making themselves known and realising they're good at it and that this is something they could excel at. So, the more numbers, the more talented, more talented's not probably the thing, but somebody more driven to be a more competitive person will come to the top anyway, because there'll be more people to choose from and more people to be involved, and you know, more people in, the more people will rise to the top and be your elite and be your speedy ones.
Ready for the Olympic sport.
Ready for it to become an Olympic sport, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Damn straight.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Survivor's the one. Survivor Eliminator style Olympic sport. I think that's the one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I see a few more of those coming into the market, actually. They're from an organiser's perspective, they're a lot less safety, they're a lot less the hassle, aren't they?
And it's the atmosphere. I think people are seeking that atmosphere. You get it at big triathlon events because they've got the money and the backing and that sort of thing to be able to just throw the money at it to create the atmosphere. Whereas ours has to be, in swimrun, it has to be very organic. And I think with like the Eliminator, with the Survivor, with that sort of format, it happens because you get invested. And people, even random strangers off the street, get invested in what you're doing, and they're the ones that then get excited to start cheering.
You can tell from we've both got a similar format race as your Eliminator and our Survivor, but completely different settings. So you've got a very urban with you and a very rural with us. So there's
fits
lots,
all over the place.
Yeah, there's lots on offer.
Yeah. And on paper, when a couple of years ago, if someone had explained, said that as a swim run, you'd be kind of a bit skeptical, wouldn't you? You'd think, that's not really a swim run.
You'd be like the Americans. You'd go, a 2.5K swim run. What's one of those?
Yeah.
But it is awesome. It's awesome. And the participants, very experienced swim runners, I'm sure yourselves as well with the Survivor, they loved it. They loved the Eliminator. I'm sure they loved the Survivor. So it's great. It is, I think, something to definitely to enter, guys, if you can get out there.
Definitely.
And looking at the rankings here, Michael Dobson, he's raced 5 this season in the UK. Top of the individual. Yeah. So
I think is he with us in Buell, I think, as well.
Possibly, yeah.
I reckon he's done at least one of yours. Because you get,
I think
because you get points, quite a few points for attendance,
don't you?
Yeah.
But you definitely get your regulars. We've got when we're doing the race packs, there's very familiar names.
Yeah.
There's quite a few newbies, but there's a lot of familiar names that come back up again.
Definitely.
And hopefully it's encouraging people to, we regularly we'll post on some of the triathlon sites and things like that, and they're like, oh, when are you coming up north, or when are you doing the northwest and things like that. And you try and explain that it's far easier for you to bring yourself as a swim runner in your gear than it is to me bring an entire race outfit somewhere like hundreds of miles away. And you try and explain that, and they're like, well, but there'll be loads of people. And you're like, well, you can travel, that you can jump on a train and most places make a weekend of it, that sort of thing. And I get that it costs money and everything is getting more expensive and tighter, but I think what the rankings has done is probably encourage people to spread their wings a little bit and go and adventure somewhere else. Go up north, go down south, go into Wales, come across to East Anglia and realise there's beautiful countryside and places you didn't realise there would be to go and play swim run.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good as well that the events are all listed on the British Swim Run site, so it does help for people, I think, to see.
I think we're a much louder voice together than we are separate, because it's such a small sport. The more people that we can encourage to take part, the better. And I think if we work as a group of organisers, I think we have a much louder voice.
Yeah, definitely. Last thing now, because I know time's ticking on. You mentioned it briefly, and I'd forgotten as a topic. Age groups. Where do you stand on age groups in swimrun, Nicky and Chelsey?
We've been requested to put age groups.
Yeah, we did it when we first started, and we just had when we did the 10Ks, we did age groups, and then when we added the 21s, we did age groups. And then the first year when John Ovenden asked us to put a 5K on as a bit of a, I think it's been nicknamed like the park run.
Yeah.
He asked for age groups, and we did it for the first year of that, but I mean, I don't know about any of the other organisers. We really struggle to kind of any sort of prize or any sort of like that sort of thing, and it's all cost. And instead of being like an armful of prizes, we had boxes and boxes of them. So we took it out, and then a lot of people requested, they didn't want a prize, but they just wanted to know where they'd come against their peers. So we'd put it back in our results. So now our results come up as, you know, overalls, male and female, and then the age group sections of where you would have come had it have been an age group prize. I don't know whether we'll go back to age group prizes as such.
No, I think we're back to just wanting to know how you do against people of a similar age and gender. You know, for people who don't make podiums like me and you, then I made podium in Portugal, but I came second, but there were only 2 of us. But the only time I've stood on the podium. It's good to know that you're, you know, in your age group where you stand and, you know, try and get better and that kind of stuff. So that's the middle of the pack's podium, I guess, you know, that where you sit with your peers. It's a good gauge of how you're getting on, isn't it? You know, it's your own ranking in the whole
I think actually it doesn't cost us anything to put it on our results, to just give people an idea, and we try every year at the end of the season to ask for feedback. So we send out, and we do have to put, please be nice, because this is our baby and this is essentially our hobby, putting these races on. You know, be nice, but you know, be truthful, and there's been a few bits back that have been really useful, and age groups kept coming up. So, you know, to make it better for people and make them want to enter, you know, you try and do the best by your competitors, and if they wanted age groups, we would tick the box on our result system, and
just supply a something, a reference really, rather than including them as a thing in Swimrun.
It does get ridiculous with if you've got several distances, male, female, solo, team, mixed category, you've got about 100 podium prizes. If you had age groups as well. And, it's interesting because there's definitely a lot of swim runners who like the fact there aren't age groups. But I know that probably ones who speak up and ask for age groups probably speak, rather than the ones who just like it the way it is, don't say anything. But I
think those that come from triathlon as well. That's a big thing, is because age groups is a massive thing in triathlon. We've noticed that it's more the triathletes that have asked for it. Because that's what they're used to, and it's the same as, you know, we have a thing that when we're at the start line, we say this isn't triathlon. You're not going to have a marshal on every corner telling you where to go. First off, you are going to have to navigate yourself. And then secondly, we expect you to help each other. We're not going to disqualify you if you grab someone's arm and hoik them out the water. We expect you to all participate and all get round and all help each other round. And kind of getting people to realise that it's not triathlon, it is swimrun, and it's its own thing.
I think that's the hardest bit with courses as well. People just expect to see a marshal on every turn, and when they've got to look for signs and tape. I mean, we have a particular corner in Grapham, and they regularly run past this turning, and I can't put any more floor paint or signs or tape or whatever. And we've still had this time a couple run straight past it, and it's like even Piers, when he came back, he said I smiled when I went to the turning up to the railway, he said, because you couldn't miss it. And I'm like, believe it or not, they have.
Wow.
So but it's that triathlon mentality, and I think that's the same with age groups and that sort of thing. And lots of people, when they come back, they say it was so friendly out there, I'm not used to it. And it's like, welcome to Swimrun. We're genuinely a friendly bunch. We're not gonna disqualify you for helping each other. We expect you to do it. You know, get in there, get stuck in, hoik each other out the water, help each other, cheer each other on, do all sorts of that sort of thing, which is very un-triathlon-esque. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think that's where Swimrun's gonna grow a lot bigger than I think triathlon is, because it's a community, not just a race.
No, that was it.
That was a statement. That was a statement.
It was, wasn't it? That's statement 2024.
Yeah, well, I think because it's a community, it's a.
I think the community will grow. Definitely, I think it's it'll come.
Yeah,
well, that would be amazing.
And now we need the music for Jurassic Park.
Good stuff. Well, cool. That was brilliant. Thank you for your time there, guys. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, great to talk to you. It's been good.
Yeah. It's and hopefully, who knows? Might see you end of September. Might do.
Yeah, be delighted.
I'll try and get
to come and come rural eliminating.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Cool. Okay, guys, have a good summer, and thanks for coming on. Speak soon.
Cheers,
Take care.
you.
Okay, that was a great chat with Nicky and Chelsey there. So, competition time. Yes, as mentioned previously, I did win an ARK Mega, courtesy of the Low Tide Boys competition. Thank you, boys, and thank you, ARK Sports, for sending it along to me. It's, as mentioned, it's a bit big for me, I think, but I do want to pass on the love of the prize. It needs to be used. It's a great bit of kit. So how am I going to do this? Well, the first person to cross the finish line at WX Swimrun on the 8th of September in Abu Dhabi, Wales, the first person who is over 6'2" or 6'2" or more, we'll have a tape measure, will win the ARK Mega, because it needs to be used, and I think it'd be best used by a bigger girl or a bigger guy, someone who can fit it between the legs nicely and not go past the knee. So get involved, guys. Another little prize to aim for. So let's have a little review of Swimrun Gower, brought back by Gritty Rascals Events. Well done, Gary, for bringing it back. And it was a great race, good conditions on the day, bit of swell. I'll come back to the first swim in a minute. But it was great. Great to see some new faces, old faces, catching up with people. Simon Griffiths was there with his race partner, Lucy Young, prolific racers in the mixed category, of course. And Simon, a former guest of the show, I think episode 4 or something like that, maybe earlier than that. And I just sat around. One of the things that made this work for me, this race, was it was a late swim run start, which meant I could get up and down on the day, which helps at the moment in this busy period. Chatting away at the start of the race, and Lucy noticed I didn't have any socks on. And quite often I don't race in socks in swimrun racing, and it works for me. It doesn't, I'm not bothered by blisters or anything. Or Simon says, what about stones and sand getting in your shoes? And I don't know if they don't get in, or I just don't notice them. But it doesn't bother me. So I'm happy. And the happy kind of moment about the whole experience of not wearing socks is I don't travel home with smelly, wet socks. I think that was the original motivation to try it. But 99.9% of people do wear socks. So, I'd advise wearing them, because for most people, you do need to wear socks. So I don't want to get the blame for anyone having problems with that. So do test it if you're going to try it. I did have time to pull out the Ocean Lube out of the bag, which I don't always do. I put some on my neck. It's an ocean-friendly lubricant to stop, chafing, etc. And to be fair, the ARK wetsuits are very good for not chafing. But I put some on anyway on my neck, and then I thought, I'll put some on my feet to see how that feels. And great. My feet were in top condition at the end of the race. As good as they were at the start of the race, should we say. So that was cool. Ocean Lube, I have no connection to them, by the way, but they're based and it's made in the UK. So that's another good thing, I suppose. So the race, last thing on the Gower. The first swim, I didn't enjoy, which I was surprised. It was waves as well, which I normally like. I was going around a bit of a headland, and I didn't enjoy it at all. And I couldn't work out. I was chatting to Simon afterwards, and they passed me. A few people passed me on that first swim, which I was a little bit surprised at. And I looked back a few days later on my Strava and my splits, and I noticed the first kilometre of running, that first run, was 3 minutes 59 seconds, and that is not my normal pace for running in swimrun, particularly on sand and rocks and things. But I was in such a rush to try and keep up with David Molinario, who won, of course. Well done, David. That I went for it, and I must have started the first swim with a pretty high heart rate. So, yeah, I think that's why my performance wasn't great on that first swim. But the other swims were brilliant. Love them. Yeah, all went well. Pretty warm on some of the runs, and yeah, well done to everybody at the Gower there. Good to see some folks who'd done. I think Stuart Birch was in third place. And he did his first swim run in Liverpool, the Eliminator. Well done, Stuart. He loved it so much he entered the Gower. And another chap approached me at the start line and said, Mike, this is your fault. I did Tallyclin swim run, and now I'm addicted to swim run racing. So that is a result, a healthy addiction, I think. So yeah, it was good vibes, all good. I came in second, just behind, well, a good few minutes behind David. And that was that. It was a relatively small field. And of course, we touched on age groups earlier with Nicky and Chelsey. I mean, yeah, you can tell if who's old and who's not. But, well, not with David. He's in his early 50s. I'm sure he won't mind me saying. He looks about 29, to be fair, in great condition. But, I'm 47 in August, and we were like top 2. So we need to get more young people. There's definitely lots of young people who could certainly beat me into second place, and possibly challenge David. So yeah, come on, we need some young folks in the sports. I think a priority. So I'm going to try and make that a goal. So yeah, what's happening coming up? It's going a little bit quiet in the UK. Gothenburg isn't too far away. And yeah, it's going to pick up big time in September in the UK here. So loads to come. Check out the rankings if you're interested in that, britishswimrun.org. Get your swimrun ID if you want to be part of the rankings, individual or team. And yeah, happy swim running. And hopefully see you on a start line somewhere.